Oh, happy Independence Day weekend, friendos, and welcome into another rendition of Solid Dudes, our new YouTube venture. Very much appreciative of everybody that's taking the time to like and subscribe and all that stuff. It seems to be so important. Hit the bell and all the things everybody else on this website says to do. Please do all of that crap. A lot of times I'm just on here talking smack and having fun and telling dick jokes, but every once in a while I am very fortunate enough to be able to speak with somebody that I admire their work greatly. And this is definitely one of those gentlemen. I'm joined by Mason Server, whose band Mason and the Gin Line, one of my favorites making music today. And he joins me all the way from, I believe, Lubbock, Texas. Am I correct?
Lubbock, Texas. Yes, sir.
Beautiful, brother. Great to see you. I know you were playing a show last evening, so this is a big commitment, I would assume.
Two ago,
Oh,
Friday
two. Okay.
evening. We played Rodeo in Amarillo, Texas.
That sounds pretty fucking cool, to be honest with you. That's
Yeah,
not a bad thing.
you know what? You know what I saw at that rodeo? This kid rode. I don't know how much you know about rodeos. I'm a Texas guy, but I didn't grow up rodeoing or whatever. But there's like different ways to ride horses that buck, right? Uh, Bareback with a saddle, and then there's another one called ranch bronc, which is more like it would be on a ranch where you like breaking a horse.
Sure.
I don't know which of the three this was, but this young cat, he rode this bucking horse all the way into one of the corners of the arena. And when the ass of that horse shot up, he'd already gotten his time. The kid was good to go. He just needed to get off. When that big ass horse's butt flew up in there, he jumped and jumped all the way over the fence. And when he got up off the ground, he lifted his hat up like that. It was pretty wicked. It was cool.
Dude, that's fantastic. The PBR comes through here, which is of course bull riding, and I always tell people that I've never kind of been exposed to that culture. I'm like, it's the most exciting sporting event that I've ever been to in person. You know, I'm talking about NFL games with 100,000 people in the stadiums. Like, it was just, the energy was incredible, and then the multitude of personalities. Like, you had these guys that are probably from Central America, like dressed to the nines, like they had the $1,000 Stetsons and they're all fucking dressed. And I'm like, are these guys riders? Like, no, this is just how into it. Then there's a bunch of good old boys. Everyone's there and everybody's getting along, and it's just over the top, like electric energy the entire time. And the bulls were as big as stars as any of the human beings riding them. It's a really great time if people haven't seen that whole sport.
Yeah, that whole stuff is the whole cowboy thing is like a part of it's kind of a big part of the image of our band, and it's mostly as much imagination as it would be to somebody that wasn't in the American Southwest. I didn't really grow up certainly didn't grow up what you would call a cowboy, a real
Sure.
cowboy. I know some of those kinds though, and I sort of grew up adjacent to it when I was a teen, say from about 14 to 20 or 21, my parents lived kind of outside of Lubbock. And it was sort of these little mini estate kind of things. Everybody had 2 or 3 acres, and the neighbors had horses that they just let me take off with all the time.
It's mighty kind of them.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was the best thing ever. I didn't feed them. I didn't water them. I didn't do anything but go over there and ride them and leave them. So it was awesome because me and it would always usually take somebody with me just because there was 2 of them. But we rode them all over the place. We didn't just ride them at their house. We took those things all over there. So I'm not a expert level horseman, but a decent amateur horseman. But at any rate, yeah, the cowboy culture, interesting.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but they're so big when you just don't really have an appreciation if you're just watching horses on TV, seeing them in movies and stuff. I mean, you walk up on them, you're like, oh, this is why everybody's been obsessed with these things for hundreds of years.
Yeah, and they're dangerous. I've never been on any of them that didn't at some point manage to get me off of their back for one reason or another. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, the album is your latest album, Sangre's out, and it's fantastic, and we've spoken about it before.
Thank you.
And I think that it's one of those albums that I always like to say this to people, because I don't know if you've experienced this where you live, but where I live, there are plenty of country and Western music fans, but there's also a big chunk of people that the second you say that, their eyes gloss over and they're like, oh, I don't want to hear any of these songs about trucks and radios. I'm like, no, you don't know.
Right.
And your band is, I just make the simile to gateway drugs, where I'm like, this is a band where if somebody is not necessarily in love with the genre, there's so many other things going on here that you're going to be able to not only introduce them to your music, but introduce you to an entire world of music. I don't know if you set out to do that, but I listen to a lot of stuff, and it definitely is that. Is that something that is, when you're writing songs and you and the guys are getting together, is that something that you intend? Like, I want to bring in casual fans. Is it, I have a message or a thought or a concept, I need to get that out? Like, kind of take me through, when you're making your music, do you take a casual fan into account?
Well, so a lot of the sort of context of this band is the peculiar background of what is now called a lot of times red dirt or Texas country music.
Right.
That has really existed now, sort of by that title, probably since like the 90s. There was these singer songwriters, Robert Earl Keen, and these guys like this that emerged, and later through different generations, Pat Green, Randy Rogers, Corey Morrow, all these kind of guys that gave these regional bands a chance to have a pretty big identity without having to break sort of on a national level, so to speak. Like, you'd have a chance of playing a lot of shows just in Texas, you know,
Sure.
within that sort of genre. But so with that backdrop said, you know, we did sort of hope and intend to have a lot of those ears for the songs to be something that those kind of fans would like,
Right.
you know. And then a big part of that actually happened in the production end of it, in Austin, with some of the choices on instrumentation and stuff like that, you know, to put fiddles in it, for example, or to, you know, so in other words, you got this basic structure of a song that could go several different ways depending on how you treat it, you know. But when you decide to put some twangy Telecaster guitars in it and a fiddle run, it becomes, it leans over that way, as opposed to maybe how you could give some of those same songs more of a, like a, what might be called an indie or Americana treatment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I do think, though, that if you are inclined to enjoy those sounds, you immediately identify. I know for me personally, if I hear lap steel or I hear someone once had a fiddle, I'm going to, it's going to perk me up, and I'm going to go see what it's all about. And if they're singing about skinny dipping and drinking in the trailer and girls in tight jeans, you're like, okay, I know what this is. But like, if you get in there and then it's more, which is what you guys do, it's a fantastic feeling, because like, it's what I imagine it would be like seeing an attractive woman. You're like, well, I'm attracted to her. And then you get over there and you're like, oh my God, we're not going to get along. This ain't going to work. And it's like, you get over there and you have similar interests and she's nice. And it's kind of weird comparing it to your music.
Right.
But you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you bait the hook the right way and then you get into, oh, this is fantastic. Like, I feel like it's the modality of conveyance to getting your music out to that certain demographic. That's the way to hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, I write a lot of the songs myself, and Blaze and I write songs together too. And we do keep in mind the audience and the sound, but more than anything, what we always like the songs to do, if we can get them to do it, is to put a simple word, is to be catchy.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because there's so many like writers that'll do this. Oh, you know, this is, I'm creating this soundscape, and you know, they're talking about, you know, transcendentalism or some weird shit, you know, and I like some of this kind of stuff that's textured, nuanced stuff, but you're not going to catch that many ears if it doesn't have some kind of melody that hooks you.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So we try to make, there's a better way to put it. We try to make melodic music, because that's what I like. That like Third Eye Blind, man. Like, God, what's better? We're somewhere between Third Eye Blind and Tracy Lawrence, the two greatest artists of any genre of all time. Tracy Lawrence and Third Eye Blind.
Those are the two. I think on anybody's power ranking, that would be 1 and 2. It just depends on where you want to flip flop them.
I got to tell you this. I put one day. I really do like Tracy Lawrence, although I wouldn't say it's like a big influence or anything.
Sure.
But I found this picture of him in the '90s. You know, in the brush popper shirt with his long blonde curly hair and a real weak mustache. And I put it on Twitter, and I put, this is the GOAT of all genres, of all art, of all time. And this guy that follows me from British Columbia, he seems really dry, and he said, "Are you serious?" And Tracy Lawrence, the great. And I was like, "No, not really," but I do like him.
And I think that what you're saying, though, the ability to write like a catchy song that will stick in your brain, and also is, I think what happens is we hear songs so often they turn into background noise, so you kind of disrespect them. But that fucking band Train, they had like 3 or 4 hits in the 90s and then came back 30 years later and had a monster #1 hit. You're like, that's almost impossible to do.
Yeah,
like
it can't happen.
Industry won't allow it to happen. So I don't know. I'm with you. People are disrespectful, I think, and that's why there's a friend of mine. His name's Doogie. He's the Sonny Ledford is his band, and he loves yacht rock. And it's not ironically like everybody loves yacht rock now. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like the instrumentation combined with a message that's simple enough where everyone can relate to it, and then also it sticks in your head for 40 years. He's like, he just has such an appreciation for the songs, and I think that's what you're talking about when you're putting them together.
Yeah. Well, you just want them to be, and another thing that's a cool byproduct is, it's more fun to play those songs live if you like them.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to it taking some like real emotional deep dive, some, you know, big time layered messaging thing that never really has anything that pops out at you. It's more tedious. It's fun to play stuff that people like, and you know, hopefully sing along to, maybe dance to. The people at the little rodeo the other night, they danced to everything on there, even the song "Summertime." Can you believe that?
Wow, I wouldn't think that would be
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how they found their footwork, but we didn't ask.
On your list of floor stompers, I'm not sure if that one would come up, but
yeah, that's an odd one to in that on that record, isn't it?
And maybe they just like good songs. You never know. It's an appreciation for that. I got to ask you about, again, we talked about him when you were on the show originally. Zach Nelson, the guy that did y'all's cover art. And actually, let me pull that up right here so people can see this. If you want to take a look, this is the album. And first of all, as someone that is not musically as inclined as you are, but I have pressed albums to vinyl, there's something weird about that feeling when you finally get it. Like when you get past the test pressings, when you get past, all right, this is the album art, and how many minutes is it? What's going to what side? And that thing is just sitting there in your hands. It's very difficult to describe. An artist didn't sell anything at all, and people enjoy your album, so I don't want to compare the two. But how did that feel? Because you wrote the album, you have the record release, everybody's enjoying it, but then you got to wait because everything involved with vinyl is backed up for a million fucking years. I imagine that's the case with you guys. How did that feel when you unwrapped that bad boy for the first time?
It's pretty awesome. That Zach's art is and that, like I said, that was a Blaze connect. He found Zach Nelson, and I'm not even sure how he did. He's in Lubbock, so, but I'm not even sure what the connection was. But honestly, the art is so awesome that I hope the music lives up to the cover art, not the other way around. I actually, when he finished that, I honestly thought to myself, man, that image is big shoes to fill for this record, you know?
Yeah, but it's I mean, that's humble of you to say, but I think that's even more perfect because the record's excellent, and then you have this epic piece of art that goes along with it. I mean, I think they complement each other.
You know, he told me one night, Zach told me how he came up with that, and he's a movie head, and he even finds these. I think the image was some kind of thing that came from his mind, that came from maybe kind of like a B-level Western thing that he saw, because he told me the name of the movie. I'd never seen it, but there was an image that stuck out in his head, and that's kind of where he drew that reference from. But yeah, he nailed it. Zach is a really nice guy, and He kind of strikes me as a little bit of a heavy guy. I think there's a lot going on in his head. Some
Anytime
some
I've
light
spoken
and
to him,
some dark. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, this is like, I mean, the guy's done everybody. I mean, if everyone in your industry, like Titans, he's done the cover art for them and just does like, I mean, he did all of Cody Jenks's covers, and I don't know, man. I like all the shit that he's done. He's done artwork for me before. It's not cheap. Um, I think yours is the best comparing it to all of it. So maybe
it's pretty wicked.
And he's out there. He's not just, I don't see him being an apostle for all of the bands he does artwork for. He's actively, every time I see him on social media, he's kind of waving the Mason and the Gin Line flag, which is cool.
He comes and sees us. He's involved in so our area code out here is 806. And so on August the 6th, 806, where it's a Sunday, we're actually doing a show with a guy named Thomas Mooney, who's kind of a music journalist guy, and him and Zach are buddies, and they're throwing a thing that's kind of as if Lubbock people don't praise ourselves enough. We found another opportunity to do it. That's what's kind of funny about us playing like the show in Amarillo. That's a town that's about 100 miles away, and it's kind of there's kind of an unspoken rivalry between the two places. And the Amarillo musicians will always tell you, we love you guys, but your pride outweighs your product. You guys you're more proud of your town than anybody should be for that shithole you live in. You know.
You know, it's funny the way you're describing that, because in Northern Virginia, we feel the same way about, I don't know if you've ever been in this part of the country, but everybody from fucking Baltimore is batshit pants shittingly proud of being from Baltimore. And every single one of them, to the man and woman, has got a magnet on the back of their car that is a crab, the outline of a crab with the Maryland flag inlaid inside of it. First of all, the Maryland flag is the worst looking thing.
Yeah, it's a strange looking thing.
Terrific. They wear it on everything. Like every single Jeep Wrangler's got it in their grill. I mean, they are I've never met cockier people than the people that are from these shitty suburbs around Baltimore. And I can say this because I did radio up there. I've got lots of listeners up there. I kid because I care. My wife's from up there. But it's like, it's a very weird thing when you have that little brother mentality. Now, I'm not accusing you of that with Amarillo.
Right.
But Baltimore and Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area, it's very much like what you're describing right now.
It is like that. And a lot of it comes from, and you guys have that up your way too. A lot of that stuff is born too. We have Texas Tech University is here, and several of us guys in the band went to Texas Tech, and we were brought up on it as religion. It is nearly religious. And the Texas cities that have, for example, the biggest one being Austin is the home of the mighty Texas Longhorn nation, right? And the Lubbock attitude, they always talk ugly to us and how Lubbock is so shitty and flat and all that. And you just have if you're a Lubbock guy, you just have a natural go fuck yourself attitude. We love this. We love our little flat, dusty shithole, you know? So it is a little brother thing, for sure.
Were you there when Cliff Kingsbury was a quarterback there?
I was. In fact, I went to Texas Tech between 2002 and 2006. And so he might have been the starter when I was a freshman. If not, he had just left. And then of course, as a fan with him there as a coach, which was a big disaster. But
yeah, it was. But like, I don't think people understand. If you were there, I don't know if you're a big football fan, but
oh yeah, huge.
Okay, well, I imagine that the Texas Techs, when Kingsbury was there, they would throw the fucking ball. I mean, I've never seen, I think it was just the spread offense, but they would throw for 600 yards a game. I mean, his numbers were so cartoonish that anytime the Red Raiders were on any type of television, like, oh, you got to sit down and watch this game because they're going to score 78 fucking points and they're not going to run the ball once. It was one of the most exciting football teams that I ever have remember watching in my adult life.
Well, it's like so that was the Mike Leach, rest in peace, Coach Leach. That was his. He found the perfect place to come out here and experiment. And it's weird because the man's offense and his personal style would be regarded as nothing more than unorthodox. And oddly enough, in Lubbock, which is one of the most orthodox places you'll find, you know what I mean? This is, if there's a Bible Belt left, this is probably it.
Sure.
My mom and dad would be in church right now, which I enjoy that myself. But it's odd that it did seem to fit the psyche of the people out here because, like I said, it is kind of in a throwaway part of the state in to some regard, very flat, hot in the summer, cold in the winter. And I think that go for broke attitude really fit us as a people. That was like, we've been pounded 75 times in a row by the Longhorns and the Sooners and all that stuff. Fuck it. Throw it every down. Fuck it. You got nothing to lose. Do it. That kind of was the attitude, I think.
I think it was Graham Harrell that I remember watching, where he was in the Alamo Bowl and just throwing the ball and just they were announcing records that were being broken as the game was going on. It was just a shitload of fun to watch.
You know what's wild about that is and you're a football fan, is that I don't think it's a reach to say that period of experimentation in the 2000s at Texas Tech, the impact, it's everywhere now. Yeah. And that's one reason why when Leach left Tech, we had a decade of pretty poor results. And I think that to some extent it was a combination of trying to chase that identity with other coaches and personnel and everything else. And also the reality that everybody else is doing that stuff now too. Even in the pros, you see it, to some extent, a lot more. Of course, I'm sure the research is there, but teams that run the ball win championships though.
Yes. And I'm a Titans fan. So that's the letter.
Oh, man.
If Derrick Henry's going for $120, they're going to win. If he's not, they're not. But what's interesting is I think that the extension of we're going to want to get into too much nitty gritty here, but the part about this, to go back to Kingsbury and the offense that he wanted to implement, it's not that it doesn't work. Here in DC, we hired Steve Spurrier to be the head coach of the Redskins, and everyone shits.
I remember that.
They shit all over it. And they're like, it was a disaster. He brought in Rydell Anthony and Jacquez Green and Danny Werfel was the quarterback. It's like, well, that's not Steve Spurrier's fault. Like, have a general manager that says, no, we're not going to do that. You are going to be an offensive genius. If you would like to play golf, that is fine. Also, we're going to surround you with the best coordinators, and then we're going to go out and get the personnel and you coach them. I think if Kingsbury went to a different organization that had a sense of structure, I think that's the reason why the Rams wanted him. Like, it's a reason why everyone wants him still, because they know the tree that he came from and the offensive ingenuity. I just don't know. There ain't no dude, you're a lead singer. Like, there's no shame in being a drummer. Like, fucking drumming is incredibly difficult to do. And I think that people look at it and say, well, he was no good as a head coach. He's a maniac. No, man, I think that guy is a genius offensively. The NFL knows it, and he's going to get into a position where he's going to thrive at some point.
Yeah, he needs the right fit. I think that was the problem that he had at Texas Tech and maybe even at Arizona also is I don't think – well, say those are two different things, right? But in the college game, so much of that stuff is recruiting, it is schmoozing, all that kind of stuff. And I don't think that's necessarily his strong suit. From all accounts, when he was at Texas Tech, I heard the guy was at the facility at like 4 or 5 in the morning. He would work out himself and then go through film and do all this kind of stuff and leave late at the night. He gave everything he had and came up short, which I respect that. I still love the guy. I wish that had gone well. When he came to Texas Tech, the Lubbock newspaper had the full front page was the picture of the stadium in total red, and it said the return of the king.
That's awesome.
Oh God. I mean, it makes the chills go up my spine now. But that's life, right? That's some of the stuff I try to capture in songs too, is those, sometimes the best expectations fall short.
Yeah, they certainly do. And I think
it doesn't always work out.
That's the human condition, my friend. I think
it is. It really is.
I think that's what you're writing about. Before we move on, I wanted to show you this one picture because I think it absolutely encapsulates what you're talking about with Kingsbury. Because sometimes I feel he's a handsome dude, like he's a lean dude, he's a young dude, and I usually, when I look at a head coach, I'm like, well, they need to look like Wayne Fonts. You know, they need to look like
You're right.
because Wade Phillips, some guy like that. And I don't know if it's held against him. I don't think in NFL circles it is, but certainly in my expectations, you got to take a look at this picture. It's just so fun. So that's Eli Manning and Tim Tebow. And there's a meme rolling around that says, how am I going to explain to my kids in 15 years that the guy on the right won 2 Super Bowls that was MVP and the guy on the left couldn't stay in the fucking league?
It's crazy that you showed this. Have you seen that picture of Eli on the beach with the sand bucket?
I don't think so, but I could try to find it for you if you want.
My God, man. If you type in Eli Manning on the beach,
yeah. I got it right here.
He has the dumbest look on his face.
This can't be real, bro.
He looks like a half-wit, man. And you know, and physically, obviously the thing you can't tell in the picture is the guy's like 6'5", right?
Of course, yeah.
And super talented, but that's a weird thing, right? Like he's not, his physique is not, you don't see 2 Super Bowls there, right?
No.
I mean, yeah, he's 6'5", but you're like, yeah, but look at this guy.
I just
look at that.
It's so weird too, because like when you think of football players, square jaw, alpha, you know, 6'4", standing and stoically in the pocket, he had the worst body language of any football player I've ever seen, much less quarterback.
Shoulders slumped. When the pressure was on, you could see it in his face. But you know what's crazy though is he had the thing, him and his brother, and it's a good example of that quarterback, NFL quarterback, that position is so much of it's right. It's up there.
Unique, man.
It's got to have the head for that job. Can you imagine having those big, huge monsters chase you?
No, not at all. And that's why when I see, you know, you see how big they are on the sidelines, and then you see Kyler Murray or any of these guys, you know, Bryce just got a draft that are not 6'5", and they're just out there walking around. Like that guy would be a normal sized guy in your shopping mall, and he looks like he's at the waist of all of his offensive linemen. I give him all the credit in the world because I wouldn't even walk out there on the field with those clowns.
It'd be terrifying.
Terrifying. So take me through it. You guys you have a job. You're not a musician full time. Is that correct?
That's right.
So you're finding success. You have an audience. People like your music. There is a mortgage to pay and a real life to live. So I get everything about it. But creatively, what is it like trying to most people come home from work and they're like, Jesus Christ, I'm gonna watch some TV, I'm gonna have some supper, and then I gotta go to bed. How do you balance the two when one part of what you're doing is so creative and then you have to be pragmatic in the rest of your life?
Well, you know, honestly, the pragmatic side is even has gotten exponentially bigger recently. I got married in December, and I have 2 stepdaughters and a brand new baby. Can you imagine that? My first child at 39. My wife, she's over there right now. And I'll tell you another thing. It's crazy. In my house, we don't speak English. We speak Spanish in my house.
The whole time?
All the time, because my wife doesn't speak English. She's from Mexico. She just moved here a couple of years ago, and she hasn't learned English yet.
Wow.
So I also live two lives, 2 languages too. But I work for my dad, and we have we manufacture agricultural products. We have a metal fabrication shop. So I'm the shop foreman we've got 7 or 8 guys right now. It's a small business. There's probably 11 of us, 10 or 11 total, counting sort of the office and the shop part. But I speak Spanish at work too. A bunch of our guys are Mexico guys. So it is a little bit difficult it's difficult to find time to write songs, but what I do is I use the iPhone Notes app.
Oh, sure.
I'll be on a forklift or something and have some concept or some line or something come into my head, and I just save them up. And when I find time, I'll work on it. I don't find it much, but on my days off, right now we work 6 days a week. So Sundays are usually the only day off, but we're taking Monday and Tuesday off as well. So I've got a little stretch here. But I'll work on some of that stuff. I'll pull those ideas up. I wrote a song about a monkey the other day. Can you believe that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw. I think it'll make it onto something at some point. But I don't know. I was on Twitter, and I saw this story about. They call him Corporal Jackie. Man, he was a South African. Some kind of a baboon, I guess.
Did you perform that on Instagram?
I did.
I think I saw that. Yeah,
I did. Yeah, he was a World War I veteran, man.
Tell people his story, because I'd never heard of it, and then I Googled it after I saw you singing on IG.
Well, these South Africans took this baboon to war with them, and he even had the suit and everything. And he would light cigarettes for the guys and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know how good he was as an effective soldier. I think it scared him a lot. But he was actually in the trenches in Europe in World War I. Got injured.
The existence of the monkey, I think, is worthy of its song. So I don't know.
I just thought that was so awesome. I was like, this is so cool that, I don't think anybody's written a song about this badass monkey, but
did they do it for morale purposes? Like, do we know the
motivation? I don't know. Maybe that's how, if you ever see videos, I go down these rabbit holes on YouTube, and I'll just find some documentary about it. Could be anywhere. It might be in Eastern Europe. It might be in a travel documentary in Asia or Nigeria or whatever. And I've seen some in Africa where those animals, those baboons, are around people, and they'll have them in like a soccer jersey a lot of times. So the animals are intelligent enough that people keep them kind of like a dog, I guess.
Dude, baboons are terrifying. Like, anytime there's an attack by one of these things, I mean, if you don't know if you're Rogan,
I've seen that. I love Rogan.
Rogan talks about they go for your fingers first, like they bite off your fingers, they gouge your eyes.
Chimps especially
brutal, man.
When they're little babies and when they're small, people have them and they can play with them and they connect and all that kind of stuff. Animals are fascinating. I always find that, what's the stopgap between those animals and us? You know what I mean? Because we've decided we have a soul and all that stuff, but a dog doesn't. But damned if your dog doesn't look at you sometimes like he knows what's going on. I
would 100%. I've owned dogs that I think were better people than I am. Like,
for sure.
And not just like, I get it. Like, you're feeding an animal, it's going to have some affection towards you, but just the personality traits that their ability to sense when you're in distress and to know. I've had moments with dogs. I've had 2 meaningful dogs in my life where I was the owner, and like, they know things about you that your wife doesn't know, like your brother doesn't know. It's fucking weird. And like, to have that connection, I imagine that would be a tough thing to try to explain to someone in another part of the world where it's like, oh, the luxury of owning a pet. Like, I'm out here.
Right.
It's a difficult thing to express, but I do think it exists.
Yeah, I think so too. Like you say, it is a luxury that, I think about that stuff a lot too. And I want to address that at some point in songs. I don't want to go political with songs. I don't want to go that direction because I don't like when bands get preachy, but we are a spoiled, decadent bunch, that it's like you see it sometimes called late capitalism or whatever. I mean, it seems like that's just kind of how it goes, right?
I agree with you, and I think that it is very good to acknowledge that we have it great. I don't like the turn of, well, now we must attack this thing that has provided this amazing.
I agree. I agree with you as well. I'm that way too. Without giving away too much, I'm a traditional guy and a more of a right leaner than a left leaner. It's funny. I might have told you this before, but within the band, I'm probably by far and away the most right leaning guy in the band.
We're musicians. There's not a lot of right leaning musicians.
There's not many, man. I find myself on an island a lot, but I also consider myself to be a reasonable guy. I'm not a right leaning guy that won't listen. I'm always interested to hear people's arguments and understand why they think like they think.
Sure. So where are you at on Aliens?
Dude, that's a crazy one, man. What is going on with these they say that even the government says that there's these things that we can't figure out what they are. I keep thinking, are they Chinese? Is it some kind of Chinese robot thing?
If the Chinese had the technology to do what we see these UAPs doing, I think that we would be subservient to the Chinese at this
They
point.
would already own us.
Yes. If any human being group as tribal as we all are had a gravity drive, which is what we're talking about where they're moving like this, and their trans-medium craft where they're going from the fucking stars into the ocean, it's a wrap. Like, it's done. Whoever has that, I think that's why I personally believe we have this. The Russians probably do. And everyone's trying to reverse engineer it so that whoever has it first, they're going to be the ones that are out ahead. The part that really sticks in my craw, and I don't know how deep you get into this stuff.
Crying baby there. Sorry.
I can barely hear it. Don't worry about it. It probably sounds way louder there than here. I think the part of it that's so crazy is how much of it is being given to us, this information, because they want to distract us from something else. Or I don't think the government is in the habit of giving up really fucking privileged information that may sway power back and forth either way globally, and letting Americans know, yeah, that's a UAP and we don't know what it is, and we don't know where it comes or goes, and it has dominion over us because we can't stop it. I don't think they generally like to do that shit unless there's another reason for it.
I agree. I don't know what the ulterior motive would be. With both of those points, that one thing, trusting the government, no matter which side is in there, is something I do less these days than ever before. But also on the alien thing. So I come from a Christian background. Still consider myself to be a Christian. I think religion's tricky business for me, but even from within a framework like that, the alien thing, I look at it this way: human beings have been around for I don't know how long. Some might say 200,000 years. Some might say, I don't know. They've been writing and stuff for what, say 8,000 years maybe. The things that we do now, like the things that we do, like flying airplanes and things like that, would have been unthinkable 200 years ago, but really unthinkable 1,000 years ago, say, right? That would be the realm of the crazy. So the idea that there might be something else out there outside of our little planet or whatever is not crazy, is it? To me,
it's not. But also, and to use your own argument, then to compare, like, let's say somebody back in, just say, the time of the Revolutionary War, and you fly over in a Cessna. Well, that's only a couple hundred years of evolution. Yeah. It ain't that long. Take us 200 years. We have AI right now in our lifetime. It exists. All right. Take us 200 years with AI. You're telling me we're not going to be able to travel between, we know other dimensions exist. We're not going to be able to figure that part of it out. And then if somebody from that, if you can travel in other dimensions and time is a dimension, well, I don't know, man. The problem with it all is that all of it makes sense. We live in a simulation. It's aliens. It's interdimensional beings. Like, it all sounds crazy, but I went back. Elon Musk was doing this talk about video games, and he said, take a look at Pong, which was back in the 70s. You and I.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I was alive. And now look at PlayStation 5. I mean, look at the difference between those two fucking things. Now go 40 years from PlayStation 5. We're all going to be sitting in incubators with VR visors on our face, never leaving the house because we don't have to. And the part of that fucks with me, man, is like, everybody, whenever they make a movie, it's like, oh, these computers put you in the Matrix and they jacked you in. It's this hostile act my whole goddamn life. Like, I decided to I wear a watch that tells everybody where I am all the time. We're going to just accept this. Like, we're going to accept whatever is coming for us because it's going to be made easy and convenient. That's the part that really fucks with me.
You know, also, like the instinct that we have to think that to err on the side of the advancements that we make being nefarious is maybe not true to our nature all the way. People are. I think people are innately. It's possible for people to be evil and stuff like that, but I think largely we err on the side of doing things that are good for most people. So most of the technological stuff that's in front of us, hopefully will help us, not hurt us. You know what I mean? But there is evil too.
Yeah, man.
So I don't know where we go from here. And even like our, you look at the country itself, and then globally, it's interesting time to be alive. That's for sure.
Do you know the difference? I just learned this. Do you know the difference between being black pilled and being white pilled?
I don't.
So everyone talks about red pilling and blue pilling or whatever politically, but the way that I understand it is that black pilled people, which unfortunately I think I kind of lean more towards, I try to fight against it, is it's all fucked. We're all coming down. People are inherently evil. We're exposing ourselves to that. Technology is exposing that. White pilled people don't believe that. They think, hey, everything's going to be fine. People are inherently good. We're going to look out for each other. Yeah, well, there's some ebbs and flows, but you find a way to, we've always figured out a way to. And I think the problem is that you have now a culture of envy where you're exposed. I never know what a billionaire is like. Lifestyles of the rich and the famous. Like that was the only way to see yachts and shit.
Oh yeah, you would never see it.
No, and now every attractive girl on Instagram, like you're 22 and you're on a yacht in the Caymans, and I'm going to work every fucking. I think that it's blackpilling people because they get frustrated and they get angry, and I think that's why we see now when people are peacefully protesting, there's so much more destruction because there's so much matter about so many other things, and you can kitchen sink all that shit, and it results in, all right, we're gonna rip up this entire city and burn it to the fucking ground.
We're you know, the Instagram girls, the OnlyFans stuff, and that's just on the female side. I don't mean to pick on the ladies, but that stuff is that stuff's bad, man. The suicide rates among young women are super high, and some of that is because of this crazy social media stuff. You know, that every girl's got this great figure. You know, every picture's in, like you say, in an exotic place and in a moment of total peace and tranquility, and you know. It's a false. Those people that are doing that, it's their life is not always like that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's fake. That even the stuff closer to home like Facebook. You always put your best foot forward on this stuff. You know what I mean? Oh, this is the family vacation. We're in the Cayman Islands and all this kind of stuff. Look at this. Obviously tells you that we have disposable wealth and all this. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
that doesn't tell the story behind the scenes that this guy's screwing his secretary, and you know what I mean? There's all that dirt doesn't show up in the post, you know?
I agree. I think it's also why, particularly to circle it back to your music, I think I worked a lot of real jobs in my life, like jobs where you're sweating on a roof, or I'm fixing your plumbing and you didn't take the cat litter box out, so my head's down next to it. Working in Home Depot, like dealing with contractors. I think that if you can get someone that has some frame of reference from being in the real world, which is where you're at your job, and then also they have that creative spark. First of all, it's very rare, I think. I think that's why I'm so intrigued by your music, because that's like it's very difficult for me. I love Bob Seger, but when he gets on stage and he's singing to me about how difficult it is to be a rock star, I'm like, Bob, get the fuck a hold of yourself.
I've thought about a million times that particular reference, and you know, we've gotten to play with pro groups, and you can see that a life on the road there would be difficulties to it. But when you're at the level where you're famous and stuff, if you've got hot chicks out there that want to jump in the sack with you, you can't complain about that. That's it. That's even if you can't, like I'm married, right? And I love my wife, and I'm very happy with all that. But when you're a young guy and you start that band, that's what you were trying to accomplish.
Course.
And when you get that, I don't want to hear about it.
I don't want to hear about it.
I don't want to. Yeah, the guys out there, you know, I used to listen to. I haven't listened to him as much in a while, but I used to listen to. I think Springsteen had a lot of that ethos in him.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the younger days, you know, he saw that working class New Jersey stuff and tried to put that in songs. And I think he accomplished it in a lot of cases, you know, and
Not so much now.
no,
Not
it
so much
now,
now.
that's why I say I used to, I've kind of, I don't, that Super Bowl ad that, remember when he had the Super Bowl ad where he's at this church in Kansas or something and
Yeah.
talk about, you know, like he was the great savior to unify the country or something in a Jeep or whatever. It's like, dude, this falls flat right now, dude.
Yeah,
You
he
know?
I've always thought that he is a tremendous songwriter. I love a lot of his songs. His over the top emotional fucking baggage that comes with that. When people cover Bruce Springsteen songs, I really like it. Like about 12 of you people that you probably are familiar with cover I'm on Fire. And I like them
Yeah.
all better than the original. Like every
Yeah.
single one of them better
Yes.
than that. When you're writing about shit, I think that people can tell. Like anybody with a crap detector, it's like if I went out there and I tried to write a song about being a trucker, people are going to be like, you're a fucking fraud, you don't know anything about being a trucker, and it's going to come through. But I think with the music you're making, there's a great opportunity for it to be about where you came from and where the band came from, and but also be more, also, work other aspects. If you're writing a song about a monkey, it's like, well, I bet you could write a song about what it's like to work all day and then go home and no one speaks English, and the blending of those two cultures. Like that's a song. I mean, the first time we talked and you spoke about that, I'm like, that's an album, that's cooking inside of you right now. It's going to come out.
Yeah. That's a big influence that I have. That's a little bit different than you find most with most guys. You know, the whole American, well, across the United States, but the American Southwest especially is largely comprised of people that are either derived of Mexican heritage or they're, depending on how recent, like in Lubbock, there's a million families of people that are, they're Mexican American, I guess, but they don't really identify that way. These are American people.
Sure.
But there's a lineage from Mexico is what I'm getting to. And I've always really liked it. I like the culture, the food,
Music.
the women. I always liked that too. And the music. Yeah. And so one thing, for example, songwriting wise that I like is, the ballad, what we look at as the story song or the ballad, in northern Mexican tradition called norteño, they have what they call corridos, right? And a lot of these are stories of bandit or,
Sure.
And I love these stories too, because a lot of times this bandit guy is a womanizing, he's got kids all over the place. And I just think it's a colorful thing to imagine this bandit guy that travels across Mexico, hooking up with hot chicks everywhere he goes and getting in shootouts. And, it's colorful stuff,
Sure.
But yeah, the music, I love it a lot. I even bought an accordion at one point.
Oh man.
Kevin, the guy that one of our guitar players, he has it. He's probably the most musical of the band. And he wanted to attempt to learn it. I couldn't do it. It was too complicated, but I like those themes. That's one thing we try to implement is to sort of, just like that album cover, is to paint some pictures of the experience in the American Southwest. That's captured my emotion the most.
Have you thought about doing an album in Spanish?
I have. In fact, I've been working on writing some stuff in Spanish. When we play, our last song is always what movie is it in? It's the one that has Antonio Banderas in it, where it's
Desperado.
That song called Canción del Mariachi. We play that.
One of my favorite songs of all time, dude.
We ripped that bad boy last.
You get up on the bar and play it like he does, and beat up the dudes that are trying to attack.
I haven't done that so far, but yeah, no, we're gonna delve into that writing in Spanish stuff. I don't want to turn people off with it, so I don't know if one thing is this: my grasp of the language is good enough to function at a pretty high level.
I'll say,
but to write it to write songs in Spanish, to be able to capture nuance and stuff like that, I have to get my wife to help me with that. So
Yeah.
we'll have some stuff in the future coming out that'll be in Spanish, I'm sure.
He goes, me gusta tocar la guitarra, me gusta cantar.
That
It's fucking
that
great.
song.
So, did we talk about the Mavericks when you were on the show?
Maybe. I'm not
So-
sure. I love the Mavericks.
They're fucking great, and they're kind of exactly what you're describing. But they've got an album out called In Español, and it's what you just said. And they have a song on there called Recuerdos. I would love for you to listen to it because it's one of my favorite songs of theirs. And dude, I speak high school Spanish 3 level Spanish, right? So I'm catching every third word. I can tell if you're angry at me. That's pretty much the way that it goes. But music's fucking music. And this album, it's tape to tape. I have it on vinyl. And when I'm in my shop, it's a double disc. I fucking just sit there and I go through it 3 or 4 times just because of what you're talking about. I love the influence of this where you live in our country, and then the people that come over and live, the blending of all of that. When people talk about a melting pot in America, it's like a burrito is as much of Texas culture now as, riding a goddamn horse. And I think that's fantastic. And when everybody kind of embraces that and gets along, that's where we want to be. And that's why when you said Mexican American, they don't identify as that. Well, why would you? What does that even mean? Like, you're
right.
You can absolutely respect where you come from and appreciate it, but also, I feel like all those fucking terms were slapped on everybody in a further attempt by some. I don't like the terms Illuminati, that bullshit, but somebody out there wants us all to be angry at each other.
I hear you. I know where you're coming from. And the funny thing is I'm right there with you on that thing. I think that people, well, you already see the rates of intermarriage and stuff like that are much higher. People actually can live together, and the American vision is a good one if we won't blow it up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that vision is, like you said, you hold on to that culture. And then I was talking yesterday with a guy that I work with, and was saying the truth is we do all this identity stuff. Well, I'm an African American. I'm a whatever white guy. I'm Mexican American or whatever. But if you took these people and placed them somewhere else in the world, what they are more than anything is American. That the things that how they live, how they jive is American, not white guy, black guy, brown guy. It's American.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
People from other countries certainly are able to tell we're Americans.
Oh,
they're able to pick up on that a little.
Oh yeah, but a lot of them don't like it that much.
It's a bit of that Lubbock swagger that you were talking about, I think.
Oh yeah.
What is it going to take to get you guys into this neck of the woods? We got to figure that out at some point.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. Me and Blaze already been talking about how we can do that. I just got a new truck, and it's a 2021 Ram 2500 diesel with a flatbed on it. This is a working son of a gun, and I've already told Kevin. He's the newest member of the band, therefore he's the one getting picked on. I said, what we ought to do is all of us boys will fly up there, and you can drag a trailer with that truck right there. and
that's a hell of a drive.
And he said, I'll do it. I'll do it. Then the drummer said, I'll do it if I get a bigger cut of the money, So I think we can make that. We need to talk to me and Blaze need to actually get together and talk about that.
Well, I mean, it's got to make sense, and I get it. And you guys have jobs, and you guys have got real life considerations instead of just idealized get here and play a show. I do want to thank you again. John just brought it up. I wanted to pop a comment up there, selling those records and signing those and getting them out to the shop. I had,
of course,
man, people were so fucking excited. You never know. Like, I never know. Music is such a personal thing to people. And then when you want to share it, it's like, sometimes I don't like to do it because I'm like, if someone shits on this band that I like, we're not going to be cool.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Shitting on a family member. But like so many of my listeners loved the record, and then having one signed, and then I think the artwork's a part of it, connecting with the songs part of it. It was very cool to see how many people were excited to get those and how quickly they went. So thank you again for making that happen.
No, but I'm telling you, I see it all the time on social media, especially on Twitter. Positive commentary from people that are in your neck of the woods, and a bunch of them. And that's great. I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier, living those two lives. I'm very fortunate to work for my dad because he obviously understands the dream aspect of the music,
Sure.
and facilitates that to some extent. Um, I like to think that he does that though, because he gets it out of my ass in the end. You know what I mean? He's always driven me to work hard,
Sure.
and he was a great example of that. But with all that said, I do have that leverage to do some getting out there and playing. So we just need to, Blaze and I need to figure out how to make it happen. We would love to do that. So
And
far we've been as far as Fort Worth and Austin, played over in New Mexico some, but we haven't gotten Oklahoma. We haven't gotten as far as the East Coast for sure.
how come? Yeah, well, I mean, but you're just like didn't you just say you work fucking 6 days a week?
Well, we do, but we can be
I mean,
we do, but we can be creative with, I can get some liberties on that stuff is what I'm getting at, for to go do that and make a little run out there would
sure.
be possible. We could do it.
We're gonna make it happen. It's just a matter of the coordinations. Now, I did want to share this with everybody because I know a lot of people shit on the bands for wearing their own merch.
Yeah. Yes.
I am not one of those people. I'm a capitalist, and moving your merch is what's most important. I wear my own show shirts all the fucking time, so I was kind of happy to see that you're one of those guys.
That was the day. That was the day that or that maybe the day after we got those shirts. So over the course of the day, I had the shirt on, and showtime got closer and closer. And I told Blaze, I said, man, I think this is kind of, I think you're not really, this is a faux pas or whatever. You're not really supposed to do it, but I'm just going to wear the shirt. I don't want to change shirts. And so he said, yeah, do it, man. And that guy, that is Blaze there. And he's he deserves much more credit than he gets. He's the business operator, co-songwriter, and that's my old pal from way back. It's funny, we talked about doing this 20 years ago when we were young pups, and dreamed about how we were the stage moves we were gonna do and how much the chicks would love us and all this kind of stuff. And he went off to the Marine Corps. We both ended up going to college. I was in college at that time. I finished and started working, and kind of the music, I never pursued it. And his buddy later down the line heard Loose Tonight and said, you need to let us produce that song.
Yeah.
And so it's like, waiting for opportunity to come to your doorstep. I would never advise someone to do that, but in a roundabout way, that's what actually happened this time. We got lucky, and that Loose Tonight became before there was a band.
Well, and that's the thing about that record. This is the shirt, by the way. I'm wearing it. It's fantastic, and it's also not one of those shitty Gildan scratchy shirts either.
Right.
It's one of the good ones. So go to the website. It's Mason the Gin Line. You can just Google it and grab that shirt. It's a solid one. I wanted to tell you specifically about that song. I love country music, and I don't make any apologies for it. And I love George Strait, and I love Johnny Paycheck, and I love.
Oh yes.
I mean, I love the roots of it. You go back and you listen to some of the stuff. Porter Wagner, all the stuff from Hee Haw. Like you go back and Green Acres, fucking unbelievable. Like if you ever go to the Country Music Hall of Fame and you see like the exhibit from all of the artists that went on that goddamn TV show, it blows your mind. I don't make apologies for it, but that song, that's not a good country song. That's a fucking great song. Like you could play that if radio stations did anything noble anymore, you could put that on about 4 different formats and it would fit perfectly. So it's, I always like it when bands don't get. I think I asked you about Pipeliner when you came on last time. I was like, are you fucking tired of playing it yet? Because everybody loves it. And it's like, I think when you get a song that transcends everything, I always like when bands still appreciate that. Because so many guys like in Metallica, I'm so fucking tired of playing Ride the Lightning. It's like, bro, come on. You're up in front of 85,000 people every single night, and they all know every word to that song. That's got to still at some level be enjoyable.
I read an interview with, I can't remember if it was Keith or Mick. It was Keith. It was Richards or Mick Jagger, one of the Rolling Stones. And this was probably, in the mid 2000s when I read it, but those guys would have already been in their 60s probably by then, or mid 50s. And they asked basically about that question about the boredom of, do you get bored with with playing these songs and, doing these shows or whatever. And whichever one of those guys it was, they said, man, chills still go straight up my spine when we walk out there in front of those people. I thought that's the attitude to have.
Yep. Even if you don't fucking mean it, like nobody has to know that you're tired of playing those songs. You're still trying to appeal to a customer, else you would retire. Like I believe Robert Plant does not want to play Led Zeppelin songs anymore. So he goes out with Alison Krauss and he is something completely different. Like I believe that guy. I don't believe if you're Metallica and you're going up on stage, I think Master of Puppets is still something you could suffer through.
Yeah.
This has been fucking fantastic. You're on, of course, social media. People can find you on Twitter and on Instagram. And then the website where you can buy the record is masonginline.com. That is masonginline.com. And there are links to all of the various social medias. So head on over there, pick up the new tee. I got to say, I feel very heard by you, where I remember sending you a text saying, please get a black t-shirt and please put your album on vinyl. And I believe it was 2 weeks later, both of those things happened. I'm pretty sure the ball was already rolling, but I'm going to take one little sliver of credit for those things.
We'll give it to you. Sounds good to me.
Fantastic. I took up too much of your time, Mason. Thank you so much for the time, brother. We'll see you down
the road.
Right?
I appreciate it, man. Real pleasure. Awesome to get to do it.
Let's do it again real soon. We'll talk about aliens again. It'll be fun.
All right, man.
There he is, Mason Server. Mason and the Gin Line. Go find him on Instagram. Go find him on Spotify.